What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is your boy Yarn Craig, where I cover NBA, WNBA basketball, all basketball in between, guys. So if that sounds like content that you're interested in, go ahead and like and subscribe, please. And today I'm gonna go ahead and get right to it again, like I usually always do. I'm looking at a team that was in the WNBA finals last season, but this season is just extremely slow dragging out the gate. The record is 2-6, and I'm talking about the Phoenix Mercury. So we know that this team they kind of got a lot going on, and from the forefront you got a huge missing ingredient in Brittany Griner, which indeed is impacting their success this season. But they did end up replacing her with Tina Charles, one of the best scoring bigs in the whole entire WNBA. So we're thinking that, okay, obviously losing Brittany Griner is going to be a blow, but you would think that blow would be much softened when you put an addition like her in the mix. Also, add in that the Phoenix Mercury just added Diamond DeShields from the Chicago Sky, just so she's fresh right off of a WNBA championship with, some pretty solid production. Even on the court, what we see from her this season, she's showing that she still has the goods to produce at a very high level. So when we look at it, a team that added both of these dynamic pieces, lost Brittany Griner. Of course, they brought back Diana Taurasi, Skylar Diggins, Brianna Turner, Sophie Cunningham, and Miss Petty. You know, you wonder, is like, hey, this team looks like they should be almost like a super team on paper, a la Las Vegas Aces, who play pretty much five players almost an entire game. And you look at this team at the Phoenix Mercury, where they have a few names that roll off the tongue that are high quality WNBA players, and you say, how can they be this bad? Well, for one, it's early in the season, so we'll cut them that much slack. And you know, just as far as building chemistry and things, that takes time. But I decided to take a look at some of the numbers. And I looked at points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, turnovers per game. And honestly, they weren't that bad when it came to some of those very general stats. They were kind of in the league average. But then I was like, how in the world do they have a 2-6 record and they're darn near right in the average of almost most of the general statistical categories? And then that's where we enter the defensive stats. So they're second to last in steals per game, and they're third to last in the WNBA in blocks per game. And I was like, I think we're on to something now, because even though you can't just solely judge a team's ability just solely off of those two stats, because I think the Las Vegas Aces may actually be dead last in steals per game, but they score so well to the point where it doesn't necessarily even matter. I dug deeper into some of the other stats, and it's literally what I saw was startling across the board for this Phoenix Mercury team. This is what I came across. An opponent's field goal made, the Phoenix Mercury are dead last. An opponent's field goal attempted, the Phoenix Mercury are dead last. So that means teams are making and taking the most shots against the Phoenix Mercury. Opponent three-pointers made, they're dead last. Opponent three-point field goal percentage, they're dead last. So teams are making and taking the most threes against the Phoenix Mercury team. What else is there? It's also pretty bad. Opponents' turnovers per game, 13.6. That means that they're not putting pressure on the second to last in the WNBA and forcing turnovers. So this team's sole problem is all the way on the defensive end of the basketball. So what can they possibly do to fix this? Personally, it's they have a long road ahead of them. It's still a long season, and the players are still adjusting to each other. But as it is right now, if they don't turn it around, this team that has so many top heavy names is really in danger of potentially missing the playoffs if they don't get it together in the next 10 games or so. It's still early in the season, so it's somewhat excusable right now. But with names like Diamond DeShields, Diana Taurasi, Skylar Diggins Smith, Tina Charles, you don't expect that sort of team, especially just coming off the WNBA finals, you don't expect them to be this bad. Now, they were never a defensive stalwart team. Last year, they finished seventh in the WNBA in defensive rating. So that was still right in the middle of the mix. They weren't a bad defensive team, but they weren't a good defensive team either. But this year, they're just dead last, and everybody is getting anything and everything they want against them. Hence, the Atlanta Dream beat them by about 27 points. I think the score was 81-54, and that game was almost a microcosm of their season, even though an extreme one. Teams are doing whatever they want to the Phoenix Mercury, and if they don't, I don't know. Maybe they need to change the rotations. Maybe they need to give Sophie Cunningham a few more minutes because she provides a lot of energy and a little bit of defense. Because as they are right now, they're just not competing defensively, and if they don't light a fire, under their what's ASAP, they're gonna find themselves out of the playoff picture really quick. They're just not giving that. I don't really want to say that they're not trying on the defensive end. They're just bad. They're not. Their rotations are bad. They're not getting back. They're not fighting as hard as they could be. They try, but they're not fighting that hard. And again, if you watch the games, you'll see their rotations are pretty bad. And not to call her out, Diana Taurasi is obviously a little bit older now defensively. She's not staying in front of people like once upon a time. She used to be a decent defender, but now it's just not her. And I see, Diamond DeShields is probably the most athletic player on this roster and one of the more athletic players in the WNBA, if not the most athletic. But I see even still some inconsistencies with her defensive efforts. And effort is not the right word, but just as far as, you know, defensive IQ. Like she makes a lot of, not just her, and it's not even just to put her on blast. I think this team in general makes a lot of clumsy defensive rotations, period. They need to patch that up. If they do that, they should be heading to the playoffs. And I fully expect this team to make some sort of turnaround. So you guys tell me what you think. Do you think that the Phoenix Mercury can actually turn this around before it gets too late in the season? Or do you think that this is just an effort thing and they may not have the legs, they may not have the heart to pull it off? Maybe them missing Brittany Griner. Also, don't forget about Kia Nurse, who has not played this season at all. She was a big part of this. She was a big role player for this team last year. So guys, tell me what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Peace.